I told my brother that my niece being uninformed isn't cute. My brother Mark homeschooled his daughter, but really he just kept her in a bubble. Lily is 12 and didn't know what a period was. Couldn't cross the street safely. Couldn't read an analog clock. They thought this made her innocent, but it just made her helpless. I found out how bad it was when Lily stayed with me last month. Mark's mother-in-law broke her hip, so he needed someone to watch Lily for the weekend. I live close, and their usual sitter was sick. His wife specifically told me no TV or internet. I should have said no. First morning, Lily saw the date on my milk and asked if it was safe to drink. She's 12 and didn't know expiration dates. I explained, and she looked confused. Her mom handles all the food at home. She'd never thought about food going bad because she'd never had to. I took her grocery shopping because I needed food. She kept asking why I read labels. I explained checking ingredients, and she stared like I was doing something completely new. Her mom buys the same things every week, and Lily just eats what's given to her. At home, I made spaghetti and put water on the stove. Lily asked why it was bubbling. Not curious, genuinely confused. She'd never thought about how cooking worked. Her parents didn't let her near the kitchen because it's dangerous. She'd never made herself food once. Sunday morning, she got her period. I heard crying in the bathroom. She was bleeding and thought something was seriously wrong. I had to explain menstruation to a terrified kid who thought her body was broken. Her mom never told her anything. I gave her pads and texted Mark we needed to talk. He didn't respond for hours because he was at the hospital. That afternoon, Lily seemed anxious, so I took her to the park 2 blocks away. At the intersection, she walked straight into the street. Didn't look either way. A car slammed its brakes and honked. Lily froze in the middle of the road. I pulled her back. I asked what she was thinking. She said she didn't know you stop and look. Mark drives her everywhere. She'd never crossed a street alone. Never had to pay attention to traffic. When Mark picked her up, he looked exhausted. I said we needed to talk privately. He dropped Lily off and came back. I didn't sugarcoat it. His daughter almost got killed because he never taught her to look both ways. She got her period and had a breakdown because he didn't prepare her. I said treating her like a baby wasn't keeping her safe. It was making her vulnerable. Mark got defensive. Said they were protecting her from the world's bad influences. I asked how she's protected when she can't recognize danger. He said she didn't need to know everything. That innocence mattered. I told him innocence and ignorance aren't the same thing. He said I wouldn't understand because I don't have kids. That their values were different. I said letting your kid walk into traffic isn't a value. It's neglect. He left angry. 3 weeks later, his wife called crying. Lily had been alone for 10 minutes while they unloaded groceries. She got hungry and heated soup in the microwave. Used a metal bowl because nobody taught her not to. The microwave sparked and smoked. Lily panicked and opened it. The bowl was hot, so she grabbed it barehanded. Burned her palm badly. Mark heard her screaming from outside. His wife said Mark had been quiet since. Asked if I'd help teach Lily basic things. I said only if they committed to actually educating her. Not just safety tips when it's convenient. Real knowledge. Lily comes over Saturdays now. I teach her to cook, how to cross streets, how to look things up she doesn't know. Last week, she made scrambled eggs alone and immediately called her mom to tell her. Mark still hasn't apologized, but at least he's letting her learn. The Saturday after the scrambled egg triumph, Lily arrived with a thick bandage still wrapped around her palm from the microwave incident. She looked at it frequently, not with pain, but with a kind of quiet, brooding realization. For the first time, she seemed to understand that the world didn't have rounded corners just because her parents told her it did. Does it still hurt? I asked, setting a cutting board on the counter. Only when I stretch it, she said. She looked at the stove, then back at me. Aunt Sarah, why didn't Dad tell me about the metal? He says he wants to keep me safe, but the microwave was scary. It felt like the house was going to explode. I took a breath, trying to find the line between being honest and not trashing her father to her face. Sometimes people think that if they don't tell you about scary things, those things won't happen to you. But knowing how things work is what actually keeps you safe. We spent that afternoon working on Home Economics 101. I taught her how to use a fire extinguisher, not just where it was, but how to pull the pin. We looked at a circuit breaker. We talked about what to do if a stranger knocked on the door when she was alone. The look on her face wasn't one of loss of innocence. It was one of empowerment. She was hungry for it. Every piece of information was like a tool she'd been denied her whole life. Around 4 p.m., Mark pulled into the driveway. Usually, he'd honk and wait for her to run out, but this time he actually got out of the car. He walked into the kitchen, looking awkward and stiff. He saw Lily standing over the sink, carefully peeling a potato with a vegetable peeler I'd shown her how to use safely. Hey, Lil, he said, his voice cautious. Ready to go? Look, Dad, she said, holding up a perfectly peeled potato. I didn't even cut myself, and Sarah showed me where the off switch for the water is under the sink in case a pipe ever breaks. Mark looked at me, then back at his daughter. I could see the internal struggle on his face, the desire to pull her back into the cocoon versus the cold, hard reality of that burned hand and the screeching tires at the intersection. That's good, Lily, he said. Go get your bag. Once she was out of the room, the silence between us was heavy. Mark leaned against the counter, his eyes fixed on the potato peels. She asked me why she didn't know about periods, he said quietly. She asked why all her friends at her old dance class probably knew, and she didn't. What did you tell her? I told her we wanted her to stay a little girl as long as possible. He let out a dry, jagged laugh. She told me she wasn't a little girl. She was a person who needs to know stuff. Where did she get that? From reality, Mark. You can't hold back the tide with a plastic bucket. He finally looked at me, and for the first time in years, I saw the arrogance gone. He looked terrified. I'm scared, Sarah. If I let her on the internet, if I let her go to the mall with friends, if I let her grow up, I can't protect her anymore. I don't know how to be a dad to a kid who knows how the world works. You protect her by making her capable, I said firmly. You're not a bodyguard, Mark. You're a guide. If you keep her a baby, the first time she encounters a real predator or a real problem, she'll have zero defenses. Is that what you want? He didn't answer, but he didn't argue either. He just nodded slowly. Over the next few months, the Saturday school, as Lily started calling it, expanded. I bought her a watch with an analog face, and we spent an hour sitting on the porch until she could tell time down to the second. We went to the library, and I showed her how to use a research database. I even took her to a self-defense class for teens. The biggest shift, though, wasn't Lily's skills. It was the house. Mark's wife, Jen, started texting me questions. What kind of knife is safe for her to start with? Is there a book you recommend for explaining anatomy that isn't too graphic? They were finally opening the windows and letting the air in. Last Saturday, Lily arrived with a library book about space and a look of absolute determination. I want to learn how to use the bus, she announced. I looked at Mark, who was standing by the door. He looked like he wanted to vomit, but he reached into his pocket and pulled out $10. Sarah's going to go with you the first few times, he said, his voice strained but steady. And you keep your phone on, but okay, we can try it. Lily hugged him so hard he stumbled back. As they left later that day, Lily leaned out the window and shouted, I'm making dinner tonight, Dad. Actual dinner. No nuggets. Mark waved, a small pained smile on his face. He still hasn't said, you were right. And honestly, he might never. But as I watched them drive away, I realized that Lily wasn't just learning how to cross the street or boil water. She was learning how to exist. And Mark, he was finally learning that his daughter's strength was a much better shield than her ignorance ever was. The bubble hadn't just popped. It had been dismantled, piece by piece, and replaced with something far more beautiful. A girl who was finally, undeniably, awake. The following Saturday, Lily didn't just show up for a lesson. She showed up with a plan. She had a piece of notebook paper with a hand-drawn map of the local bus route. Her handwriting, once shaky and childish, looked sharper, more deliberate. I mapped it out, she said, skipping the usual greetings. Route 42. It stops at the corner near your house and goes straight to the library downtown. I checked the schedule on the public computer at the library yesterday while Dad was looking at car magazines. I looked at the map. She'd even noted the cross streets. You did this yourself? Google Maps, she whispered, a mischievous glint in her eyes. I used the guest mode on the library computer. Don't tell Dad. He thinks I was looking at books about rocks. I felt a mixture of pride and a slight chill. Mark's insistence on innocence was backfiring in the most predictable way. He was teaching his daughter how to be a very effective liar. If you don't give a child the truth, they'll go hunting for it in the shadows. I won't tell him, Lil, but we're going to do this the right way. We're going to talk to him together about why you felt you had to hide that. Her face fell. He'll stop me from coming here. No, he won't, I promised, because today is the day we show him that the bus isn't a monster. It's just a vehicle. We spent the first hour going over the unspoken rules of the city. I taught her about situational awareness, how to keep your back to a wall if you feel nervous, how to keep your phone in your pocket and not be a screen zombie, and the gray man theory of just blending in. We talked about how to handle someone talking to her who made her uncomfortable. You don't have to be polite to people who make you feel unsafe, Lily. A polite no is fine once. After that, you move. You find the driver. You find a crowd. Oh. She soaked it in like a sponge. When we finally walked to the bus stop, I could see her heart thumping against her ribcage, but she didn't look like the girl who had frozen in the middle of the street 3 months ago. She looked like a soldier going into her first skirmish. The bus pulled up with a hiss of air brakes. Lily took a deep breath, stepped up the stairs, and tapped the transit card I'd helped her buy. She chose a seat near the front, just like we'd discussed. I sat 2 rows behind her, acting like a stranger. I watched her through the reflection in the window. She was hyper-aware, her eyes darting to every person who got on, checking the street signs at every stop. She was doing exactly what I taught her. When we got to the library stop, she pulled the yellow cord, waited for the bus to come to a full stop, and stepped off onto the curb with her head held high. She didn't run to me. She waited until I caught up, her face glowing. I did it, she whispered. I actually did it. I traveled 2 miles and I didn't die. You did great, Lil. You were alert, you were calm, and you knew exactly where you were. We spent an hour in the library, but not looking at safe children's books. We went to the teen section. I watched her look at the covers of books about high school, about magic, about girls her age dealing with real-world problems. She touched the spines like they were sacred relics. When Mark arrived at my house later to pick her up, the air shifted immediately. He looked tired, that perpetual, grinding exhaustion of a man trying to hold a crumbling dam together with his bare hands. How was it? He asked, his eyes darting to the bandage on her hand, which was now just a small fading scar. Did you stay in the backyard? Lily looked at me, then back at her father. She took a breath. No, Dad. We took the bus to the library. I used a transit card, and I sat in the front, and I watched every stop. Mark's face went from pale to a deep, alarming red. He turned to me, his jaw working. Sarah, what the hell? We talked about this. The bus? Do you have any idea who is on those things? The germs? The people? The danger? Mark, stop, I said, my voice low and steady. Look at her. He stopped mid-rant and looked down at his daughter. Lily wasn't cowering. She was standing with her feet shoulder-width apart, her shoulders back. I used Google Maps, Dad, Lily said, her voice trembling slightly but not breaking. I looked it up at the library because I was tired of being scared of everything. I don't want to be a little girl who gets burned by microwaves. I want to be someone who knows how to get around. I was safe because Sarah taught me how times to be safe, not just how to stay inside. The silence in my kitchen was deafening. I could see the battle raging in Mark's head. He wanted to scream. He wanted to ground her until she was 30. He wanted to blame me. But he was looking at a version of his daughter he'd never seen before, a person with agency. He sat down heavily at the kitchen table. He put his head in his hands. I just wanted one thing in this world to stay clean, he whispered. Just one thing. She is clean, Mark, I said, sitting across from him. She's just not empty anymore. Knowledge isn't dirt. It's armor. He stayed like that for a long time. Lily walked over and put her hand on his shoulder, the hand with the scar. Mark took it, his thumb tracing the mark where the hot metal had bitten into her skin. Okay, he said, his voice muffled. Okay, but next Saturday I want to go with you. On the bus. I want to see how you do it. Lily's face lit up like a Christmas tree. I can show you the map I drew. I even marked where the bumpy part of the road is. As they walked to the car, Mark didn't hold her hand like he usually did, leading her like a toddler. He walked beside her. He was still terrified. I could see it in the way his eyes scanned the street, but he was letting her walk on her own. He's still a long way from being okay with her growing up. He still tries to censor her reading list, and he still worries about bad influences every time she mentions a girl she met at the park. But the bubble is gone. In its place is a shaky, uncertain, but very real relationship built on the fact that Lily is a human being, not a trophy of innocence. Last night, Jen texted me a photo. It was Lily, standing at their stove at home, flipping a grilled cheese sandwich with a spatula. Underneath, Jen wrote, Mark watched her the whole time. He didn't even try to take the spatula away once. Progress. It's slow. It's messy. But Lily is learning to look both ways. And finally, so is her father. The transition from Saturday school to real life happened faster than Mark was ready for. It started with a brochure Lily, accidentally, left on the coffee table for the local public middle school's art program. Mark didn't burn it. He didn't throw it away. He just stared at it for 3 days like it was a live grenade. By the time August rolled around, the tension in their house had reached a breaking point. Lily was 13 now, and the person who needs to know stuff had become a girl who knew exactly what she was missing. After a massive, tear-filled blowout where Lily told Mark she felt like she was living in a beautiful cage, Mark finally cracked. He agreed to a trial semester at the middle school, provided I was the one to help her navigate the logistics. The first day was brutal. Not for Lily, but for the rest of us. I picked her up a block away from the school because Mark couldn't bring himself to drive into the chaos of the drop-off line. Lily was wearing a denim jacket she'd picked out herself at a thrift store, her first piece of clothing that hadn't been pre-approved for modesty and tradition. She looked terrified, but she was standing straight. Aunt Sarah, she whispered as we walked toward the brick building. What if I don't know the slang? What if they realize I don't know who the famous people are? Then you ask, I said, adjusting the strap of her backpack. Being honest about not knowing something is a power, Lil. Just say, I haven't heard of that. Tell me about it. People love talking about themselves. It's the best social camouflage there is. I watched her walk through the front doors. She looked so small against the tide of teenagers, but she didn't look helpless. She looked like someone who knew how to find the emergency exits. Mark texted me every 20 minutes. 9:15 a.m. Is she okay? 10:40 a.m. Did they give her a locker? Is it safe? 12:15 p.m. What is she eating? Does she know how to use the tray? I stopped responding after the third one. He needed to sweat. He needed to realize that the world wasn't ending just because he wasn't there to narrate it for her. When I picked her up at 3 p.m., she didn't run. She walked. She had a smudge of charcoal on her cheek and a crumpled map of the school in her hand. She got into the car, slammed the door, and just sat there for a minute, breathing. Well, I asked. It's loud, she said, her voice a mix of awe and exhaustion. And people swear. A lot. And there's a girl in my homeroom who has blue hair and 3 piercings in one ear. And she showed me where the cafeteria was because I was holding my map upside down. Lily smiled, a slow, triumphant grin. She's actually really nice. Her name is Jax. She thinks it's vintage that I use an analog watch. 2 weeks later, the first real bad influence crisis hit. Mark called me at 9 p.m., sounding like he was on the verge of a heart attack. She's listening to it, Sarah. I heard it through the door. It's angry. There's a woman screaming about shattering the glass asks. I looked it up. It's punk rock. Lily is listening to punk rock. Mark, it's music. It's not a gateway to a cult. She's different, he hissed. She's questioning everything. Yesterday she asked me why our church doesn't let women lead the service. She's 13. She never cared about that before. She always cared, Mark. She just didn't have the words to ask. You should be happy she's coming to you with questions instead of just Googling them in secret. There was a long silence on the other end. I feel like I'm losing her, he whispered. Every time she learns something new, a piece of the Lily I knew dies. No, I said softly. The Lily you times invented times is disappearing. The real Lily is finally getting a chance to breathe. You have to decide if you love the daughter you made up or the person she's actually becoming. The turning point came in October. Lily stayed with me for a weekend while Mark and Jen went to a marriage retreat to work on their communication issues. Saturday night, we were making tacos when Lily's phone buzzed. She looked at it, her face turning pale. What is it? I asked. Jax, she said. She's at a party. She's crying. She says her ride left and there are people drinking and she doesn't know how to get home. She's scared, Sarah. I looked at Lily. This was the moment. The innocent Lily would have panicked and hidden. The uninformed Lily wouldn't have known what to do. What are the steps, Lil? I asked, keeping my voice calm. Lily closed her eyes for a second, her lips moving as she went through the list we practiced. Verify location. Tell her to go to a well-lit area. Call a trusted adult. She looked at me. Can we go get her? Grab your shoes. We found Jax sitting on a curb 3 miles away. She was shaken, but safe. On the drive to Jax's house, Lily didn't judge her. She didn't preach. She just sat in the backseat, held her friend's hand, and told her it was okay to be scared. The next morning, when Mark came to pick Lily up, she told him everything. She didn't hide the party. She didn't hide the drinking, and she didn't hide Jax. Mark looked like he wanted to explode. He opened his mouth to start the "I told you so" lecture about public school, but Lily stepped forward. Dad, she said, her voice firm. If I was the girl I was last year, I wouldn't have known how to help her. I wouldn't have known what was happening because you let me learn. Jax is home safe. Knowledge kept us safe, not hiding. Mark looked at her, really looked at her. He saw the denim jacket, the analog watch, and the steady, unblinking eyes of a girl who had faced a real-world problem and solved it. He didn't yell. He didn't ground her. He just reached out and awkwardly tucked a stray hair behind her ear. Okay, he said quietly. Okay, just, tell me how the tacos turned out. Lily laughed and started telling him about the spice level. As they walked to the car, I noticed Mark wasn't leading her. He was walking a step behind, watching her navigate the world, finally realizing that the best way to keep her safe wasn't to build a wall, but to give her the map. Lily is still learning. She still struggles with some of the social nuances, and she still calls me when she encounters something that confuses her. But she's no longer a passenger in her own life. She's the driver. And Mark, he's finally learning to be a passenger, trust the person behind the wheel, and enjoy the view.